The theme of today's show, in case you missed it, is the neocons are back. The neocons are back. The boys are back in town. Only they've shapeshifted from the Bushes and the Cheneys into the Trumps, the Hegseths, and the Rubios. Okay. Make no mistake about it. This is the most neocon administration probably in the history of the United States. Okay. If they had the opportunity to do Iraq, the smash and grab, they would have done it. They've done enough damage. This president has done so much damage, is starting so many new wars in just 9-10 months of this one term that is just baffling. And what's more baffling is the lack of resistance against it within the United States. It shows you how corrupt both parties truly are. We'll get into the details of this. And also, we'll go into overdrive. We'll be joined by our teammates. We'll also be reviewing some of the better comments that are coming through our comment threads. Really appreciate the engagement from our audience. Fantastic. The last couple of weeks have been amazing on the comment side. We'll review some of the better ones there. But three big stories, and I'll lay it out for you, basically. The first one, of course, is the Ukraine peace deal. It's falling apart. We'll tell you why and what you might be able to expect going forward. The other one is the Venezuela war. Okay, this is the biggest fabrication, the biggest fake conflict. I mean, look, I'll get into it. I'll get into it, folks. But this is probably Trump's worst hour. Okay, I mean, so corrupt, you can't even believe it. It's everything that MAGA railed against. This president is doing it in grand style. Pretty incredible. The other one is the DC shooter. Okay. Worse than a false flag. This is a daily shooter event. Okay. If you followed 21st Century Wire, you followed the work we've done over the years with mass shootings and all these sort of high profile terror, domestic terror, international terror, mass shooter events. You'll know that so many of these have been completely debunked with clearly the participation and the intervention of intelligence agencies, the FBI, and international actors as well. We'll go through that, the DC shooter, because some disturbing evidence has emerged. We'll review that. We'll also talk about that specifically in overdrive, because obviously Hesher and Ruckus and the alternate current radio team has such great experience in this area of study. Our archive is unmatched. We'll show you some of the details of this that's going to pull it all together. Okay, so let's start with, well, before we get going, I want to bring on stage here. Okay, first and foremost, Sunday screening this week. Great selection by our editorial team, once again. And America's Richest Pastor, Kenneth Copeland. Okay, pretty shocking independent documentary, but a great piece of independent work. It's not officially a documentary, but the quality is so good that we had to feature it. And it's pretty incredible. So this is the dark side of evangelical America on the Sunday screening. Again, hat tip, great job from our editorial team. As expected, so many great selections each week for the last couple of months. It's been amazing. And so that's what's going on there. And this is tied directly to a piece that Freddie Ponton published on Friday, Inside the United States Evangelical Power Market. You can see the image there, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Benjamin Netanyahu, another evangelical actor lurking in the background. You can read more about that. So all these things are tied together. They're tied together. And Candace Owens' latest revelation about the threat that she's received, or the warning about threats to her life by an organized international confab running out of France, okay, with the support of the French state. Okay, this is not conspiracy theory. This actually has historical pedigree. So whether Candace's claims are true or not, her allegations, remains to be seen. But based on what she said, based on what she's published, we've done follow-up research on this. and found that, yes, these things exist. Not only that, they have been operationalized in the past, and there's full documentation. In the French mainstream press have done reports on this. So Candace is not talking about something here that is completely crazy, or conspiracy theorists, or she's not doing it for clicks. I don't believe she is. So anyway, that's right there in the 21st Century Why Features section, along with a couple of other articles related to that. So go look at the 3 recent articles published by Freddie Ponton on the Candace Owens story. It's very illuminating. It's worth doing a deep dive on, perhaps on the Midweek Wire. We might do that. Schedules permitted. It's been very busy the last couple of weeks, obviously, so we haven't been able to do our Midweek Wire some of these weeks. It was just impossible with the amount of other commitments, broadcasting, and also travel and so forth, and other projects we're working on. So let's get to the story at hand. And the story at hand, first story, Trump's peace deal in Ukraine. What is the status of this? What's happening with this? The Russian-Ukraine peace deal, so-called peace deal. And as predicted, like every other peace deal that Trump, he claims to have stopped all these wars, which is completely ridiculous. It just continues to strain the credibility of this president every time he opens his mouth about something that he's achieved. And anyway, this was done. This was floated out, and this 28-point plan. And it didn't take long for things to sort of come unglued, because there's 2 reasons, which we'll show you in a minute. The first is this method of doing deals. This isn't a land deal. We're not trying to build a casino in Atlantic City. Okay. That's what Trump does well, builds things, casinos. Maybe he doesn't pay the contractors or the builders, based on reports we've seen. Stiffs people. Okay, fine, fair enough. He's got his buddy Witkoff and all these other sort of shady property moguls, including his son-in-law, the shadiest of them all, Jared Kushner. So all these guys have been imported into the cabinet running foreign policy. So this is why all of these negotiations have collapsed, every single one. And in the worst case, the peace negotiations have been used as a ruse in advance of an actual sneak attack. Look at Iran as a good example. And with the previous Ukraine negotiations, with the sneak attack back in this early part of the summer, Operation Spider's Web was launched against Russia. At the time, Russians thought they were negotiating with the U.S. So it was a trick. So Trump is very deceptive. He's not very trustworthy in this respect. Very disingenuous, extremely dishonest, and hugely corrupt. And this isn't hyperbole, folks. Okay. We'll show you how corrupt this Trump administration, this neocon regime in Washington has become. And it's pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking. So where are we with this peace deal? Well, it's bound to fail. He doesn't have the people. This framework or lack of framework means that they will never be able to glue any kind of negotiated settlement together. It's not going to happen. So it's going to fall apart. The Europeans are going to sabotage it. Zelensky, or what's left of the Zelensky regime, or the Ukrainian Nazi-aligned government, will sabotage any serious negotiated settlement. They'll hold it up over Crimea or various other issues, because the Ukrainians are on the losing end of this gambit. Clearly, Russia's on the winning end. Why would they give concessions to Ukraine, which are in this failed 28-point plan? Why would they? Who gives concessions when they're winning? It's bizarre. So in a way, Trump and the Americans are in that fantasy land still. Anyway, there's a few important things in there, like no NATO membership for Ukraine, recognizing the Donbass largely and Crimea. Those are important. It's good to get those on the table. So in that sense, This has moved the ball down the field a little bit. So we'll give, on a scale of 1 to 10, we'll give Trump about a 3. At least they've got some talking points out that are going to help bring the West closer to the truth. Okay, that's important. So we'll give a little bit of credit. Maybe that's not what Trump's intending, but this is definitely a very convenient strategic pause. Potentially, that's what Ukraine wants. That's what the warmongers want. This is what the crazy European NATO member leaders want. And it's what Zelensky wants, a strategic pause to rearm and to stop Russia because they're absolutely hammering it on the battlefield. That's what this is about. And these corruption allegations have come in. And I think this is also natural political deterioration within Ukraine. That's what's happening. They can't keep this facade going forever. So that's a little bit unpredictable. But it's natural. It's a natural sequence of events. And the Zelensky puppet government always had an expiration date. He's not a politician. He's an actor. He was playing a role, a fake president. He was groomed on a television series to get the public acclimated to visualizing this little vaudeville stage performer as a president. And then he ran against the most corrupt president. That's saying something in Ukraine, by the way. Petro Poroshenko won by a landslide, and then himself became more corrupt than Poroshenko, and then started the most disastrous war that has broken up Ukraine permanently. That's Zelensky, and he killed maybe 700 to 1 million of his own people by throwing young men and middle-aged men and old men into trenches in an unwinnable war against a neighboring superpower, which is insane. But that's what Zelensky did. So where are we with this? Let's take a look at it. So here's the first clue. So a phone call was leaked where Steve Witkoff was coaching his Russian contact, of how to stroke Trump's ego. And so then this is very revealing because it shows you how insecure Trump is and how easy he is to manipulate just by stroking his ego. I mean, this guy is a galactic level narcissist. But anyway, the question is, who leaked this? It's not certain. Could be the U.S. intelligence. I think it's probably GCHQ, more likely British intelligence, could be Israeli intelligence as well. But between the NSA and the GCHQ, one of them basically has this and leaked it. And this damaged negotiations, and it set the tone for the next event. And this is the other reason why this failed, not because of this leak, but you can see things are falling apart because you don't do major international deals this way like Trump does, where he has guys meet up and he doesn't even send a Secretary of State. He's got his buddies or people who are businessmen and whatever. The whole thing is loose and ad hoc. That's why it's going to fail. Russia is tight and organized. Trump is all over the place. Okay. And the Europeans are pathetic. It's a bad combination. So here's the problem. This is why things have fallen apart. Because Marco Rubio is a neocon. Okay. He was put into this job by the Israeli lobby. Understand that. And Rubio, as soon as this thing went public, this 28-point plan, Rubio jetted off to Geneva to console the European leaders who are all bent out of shape by the terms of this deal, which weren't very great for Russia, quite frankly, if you look at it. Plenty of concessions in there, giving money away, stolen assets of Russian, giving away for reconstruction Ukraine, Trump keeping the profits. It was bad. There's so many bad parts of this deal, it's not even funny. But as soon as Rubio goes there, it suddenly becomes a 19-point plan. And then pretty much the whole thing is dead at that point. It's dead already. Personally, this is DOA already. So Rubio did everything possible to sabotage it. Okay. Instead of going there and reading the riot act to the Europeans, he undermined the president. So a great article here by Daniel McAdams, if you go to the Ron Paul Institute. Rubio, Neocon Trump's Ukraine peace plan. It's hard to argue with this analysis. Daniel McAdams, a brilliant political commentator and analyst. He is the director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. And here are the receipts. So Rubio jets off to Geneva to help lick the wounds of the European leaders who are dedicated to fighting the Russians down to the last Ukrainian. Politico lets us in on what happened next. Rubio changed the tack of Trump's negotiations. Before Rubio showed up in Switzerland, it largely felt like Vice President J.D. Vance, via his close friend Driscoll, were leading the process. By the end of the weekend, Rubio had taken the reins because the conversation became more, quote, flexible. Flexibility means that we are back to square one with a reversion to the Kellogg Euro view that the side winning the war should unilaterally freeze their position and give concessions. I mean, it's unbelievable. But here's the quote by Daniel McAdams, sums it all up. Lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. Lie down with neocons, you wake up with wars. Very, very eloquently put by Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute. That's the size of it, folks. So Trump has a viper in his nest. Trump himself is a bit of a viper. But if theoretically, I don't even know if Trump really wants peace, or he might like the idea of ending the war, but if you're president of the United States, of a great, powerful country, it's not enough to want the end of something. You have to have the brains and the acumen to know how to make it happen. Trump doesn't have that. He's clueless. He doesn't read. He's ignorant of geopolitics. He's ignorant of history. He's generally ignorant of what other countries and leaders think. You know, he doesn't know what makes them tick at all. He's really reliant on some real charlatans that are around him. And too many to mention, including the Secretary of State, you know, who would have been better off staying in the Senate. At least we would have all been better off if Rubio had stayed in the Senate. Unfortunately, he's running amok in the State Department, doubling as Trump's national security advisor, which is a bit of a joke. But anyways, too many jokes to mention with this circus. Anyway, so where's things at? Well, Putin will straighten us out. Vladimir Putin will straighten us out, is what he said, which pretty much nails it. Either Kiev's leadership lacks the objective reporting about the developments on the front, i.e. the truth. Okay, important distinction. Or even if they receive such information, they're unable to assess its objectivity. If Kiev refuses to discuss President Trump's proposal and declines to engage in dialogue, then both they and their European instigators, and the Americans too, must understand that what happened in Kupiansk will eventually occur in other areas on the front. He's talking about some of these fortress towns on the edge of Donbass that have recently fallen to Russian advances. Okay. And he points out something here that's important as well. Zelensky himself gets fed bad information. Zelensky reads scripts and does social media videos based on what Andrei Yermak, his chief of staff, tells him to say and how to film. Okay. He's an actor. Zelensky is an actor. So the information Zelensky has is not very good either. He is a weak individual. He's smart in terms of his own survival quotient, but that's about it. So anyway, Putin just rams it home at the end. And overall, the development suits us, Russia, as it leads to achieving the goals of the special military operation by force through armed confrontation. You see, that's the bottom line, folks. Russia will settle this on the while Trump, Witkoff, and all the charlatans dilly-dally and gallivant around pretending to do diplomacy. Russia's just going to get on with business. And while Zelensky and his buddies are stuffing money in suitcases, getting ready to flee to Tel Aviv, where they can't be extradited for their crimes, first their corruption and then their war crimes, eventually. It's the only safe place for these people. Russia's going to get on with it. America will get on with making money off Europe, selling them expensive U.S. LNG shipped over by boat after blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, and weapons to Europe, stupid European countries, spending more on defense, thinking they're going to mount this major war against Russia. These idiotic European leaders. And Ukraine's going to get slowly steamrolled economically, politically, and militarily. Russia's going to get on with it. America will get on with it ultimately. Europe will continue digging its hole. And Kiev, well, the rats will jump ship eventually. They're already doing it now. If they're not, whoever's not being pushed out will have to jump eventually. That's just how it's going to go. So that's the truth of it, folks. Sorry to break it to you. What does this mean in terms of where things are at? I couldn't tell you where things are going to be in a couple of weeks. I do know that this process will not survive through Christmas. We'll be back to status quo. There'll be commitments to give arms to the Ukrainians while they try to figure something out in the new year. And who knows what Russia will have achieved on the ground by then. We'll just leave that there. And this is the other part that should make you laugh or cry. It's hard to know which way to take right now. But this is the Independent. This is typical propaganda in Europe and the UK. How Trump's peace plan has been entirely dictated by Putin. This is not a good deal for Russia, this 28-point plan that Trump leaked out, floated out, or whatever. It's not good at all. You know, it's calling for a standing army of 600,000. That would be bigger than the entire German, French, and British armies combined. That is not the demilitarization of Ukraine. For starters, they're giving up territory on Donbass. There are no real guarantees. It says no NATO, but, you know, how's that going to be guaranteed? Article 5 protections for Ukraine. It means they'll be de facto NATO. So many other things, giving away Russian $100 billion of Russian stolen assets to rebuild Ukraine. It's not necessarily a good deal. This is ridiculous, but this is the cope propaganda that you're seeing around Western media. Don't know what else to say about that. So that's just the reality of that situation. So just, bear in mind, there's going to be more of this propaganda. So eventually this is going to lead us to this story. Okay, Venezuela. This is President Trump's recent tweet. Folks, I really don't know what to say at this point. So Screaming Donald says, to all airplanes, pilots, drug dealers, human traffickers, passenger airlines, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So Trump has declared unilaterally a no-fly zone over a foreign country. A no-fly zone. Okay. NATO did this over Libya before they bombed it. The U.S. did it over Iraq before they destroyed it. They tried to do it over Syria, ultimately destroyed that country, and so on. And we could go on. This is a declaration of war done through the executive branch. If you're still clinging to MAGA and you still got your little red hat at this point, you haven't done the honorable thing and gone out and bought a can of kerosene and a book of matches, I really don't know what to say to you. Okay. This is unhinged, crazy. So look, what you got to understand is at least the Bush administration had the decency to fake the intelligence, to make up a lie, to do, fancy graphics that Colin Powell showed at the UN, Winnebagos of death and mobile anthrax labs and weapons of mass destruction. They at least had they respected us enough, the public, to at least go through, put the effort in to kind of make it look like some evidence, even though obviously to those of us with working brains at the time knew it was fake. Everybody else who didn't, I'm sorry. I feel bad for you. But at least then those neocons, the Rumsfelds, the Bushes, the Cheneys, these guys, they at least went through the effort. They even made it entertaining. The decency. They respected us enough to do ornate lies. It was, you almost have, it's almost artful, the whole Iraq thing. Trump has such contempt for the public. He doesn't need to make up or fabricate anything. He just says, oh, that country is a narco state. That president's a drug dealer. We're going to war against them in order to steal their oil. So regime change, steal the oil, nationalized the assets, and hand them out, share them amongst his friends. Okay, that's what this president's doing. This is unbelievable. This is just the highest level of criminality. Okay, so what's buttressing this? Let's take a look. Go look at it for yourself. That was yesterday. I mean, how illegal is this? It's hard to know where to start. So here's Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, or he changed the name of the Defense Department to the War Department. It's like priming us for World War III. So we just find out SEAL Team 6 first bombed the boat. 2 survivors clutched the burning hull. A second missile incinerated them. Even if a Nazi SS is wounded in combat, he cannot legally be killed. Hegseth is indisputably guilty of a war crime. Hegseth gave the order to kill them all. Kill them all, he said. Second strike to kill any survivors. The Israelis did this with the USS Liberty in 1967. Okay. This is Israel mentality in terms of total psychopathy, violence, extrajudicial killing, just the highest level of barbarism. This is neocon next level. Okay. Hegseth here. And let's look at, so that's Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, what you have to understand about this guy is he is a sort of second tier Fox Weekend host that was shortlisted by the Israeli lobby to be defense secretary. And they sent the order to the Democrats and the Republicans to confirm him. No experience, no rank in the military. I think his highest rank was major as a reservist. It's kind of an insult to the country to put this guy in charge of the Pentagon, but it's what Israel wanted. And what Israel wants, Trump does. So that was a done deal. Take a look at this guy's arm, which is showing in this. You see that tattoo? So he's covered in tattoos, this guy. Like a biker or, it's like just insane. So that's the sort of caliber of the individual that's in charge of the U.S. military. So he's now caught doing war crimes. So it's easy to impeach him. He should be indicted. And he should spend time in federal prison or somebody's prison. Because he unfortunately has become a criminal. Maybe he wasn't before, per se. I don't know. But this is a guy that worked at Guantanamo Bay. That's like a big thing on his resume. He was at Gitmo. He was a guard, lording over the taxi drivers and the goat herders and the school teachers at Gitmo. Pete Hegseth. Okay. That's running the $1 trillion a year U.S. military industrial complex. He's part of this drive to declare war on Venezuela under a fake guise of narco trafficking or something like that. So the biggest drug traffickers in the Western Hemisphere are the CIA and the DEA, the U.S. government, who work with the cartels. They work with the cartels and corrupt Central American leaders. I'll show you where this leads us in a moment. Things get even more interesting at this point. Enter this man. This is the former Honduras leader who helped to import 400 tons of coke into the United States. This is a major narco trafficker. So why is Trump suddenly saying he needs to be pardoned? Wow. Isn't this incredible? So the same Donald Trump who fabricates a case against Nicolas Maduro claiming the Venezuelan president is a narco trafficker is now suddenly this week asking to have an actual federally prosecuted and imprisoned major corrupt Honduran leader thrown out of government. He's in U.S. prison, 400 tons of cocaine on U.S. streets. This guy. Trump wants him sprung. Look at this. Donald Trump says he wants a pardon for Juan Orlando Hernandez, who's serving a 45-year sentence. I will be granting a full and complete pardon of this narco trafficker, former President Juan Orlando Hernandez, who has been, according to my friends, greatly mistreated. Friends that I respect. They've told me that no, he was mistreated. Who are Trump's friends? Are Trump's friends, what are we talking about? Marco Rubio? Is this coming from Rubio? Because this looks like the cartel, the drug cartels are telling Donald Trump to spring this major accomplice. That's what it looks like, or friends of the cartels, or organized crime somehow. And Israel is up to its neck in all of this criminal trafficking and so forth. They're up to their neck in it. So this may very well track back to Israel. Okay. It's hard to say exactly how that is at the moment, but I think that the truth will eventually surface as to why Trump is doing this. This undercuts the whole basis of his fake war against Venezuela. You literally have criminals running around and giving orders to this president in the White House, and he's completely capitulated to them. That's what's happened in America. It's very sad, but it's true. And honestly, this is incredible. Don't know what to say about Trump at this point, but he can't. I thought he can't sink any lower after the Iranian bombing, and of course he is sinking lower. Who knows where this president will be by February? It's the worst train wreck imaginable. Okay. So that brings us back to this story, the DC shooter. And we will get into this in the Overdrive segment. I'm looking forward to talking to my colleagues on this. So what happened here? Like, what was this? This shooter kills a couple of National Guards people like this. He drove 3,000 miles to do this for no apparent reason, because that's what crazed mass shooters do, we're told. But somewhere behind there, I just thought, well, this is just too convenient. Okay, and we'll look at the narrative. Well, there it is. That's the headline there. Hero National Guardsman filmed taking down DC shooter Ramanullah Lakanwal. Okay, whatever. He's Afghani, came into the United States. We'll get into that in a minute. But that's one of the feel-good takeaways from this. Oh, it was a heroic takedown by the other National Guardsmen. So not soon after, courts ruling that the National Guard should not be on the streets of D.C. at the same time, practically. So was that a reaction, or was that the planned reaction to this event? Or was it the fact that Trump cancels visas for all asylum seekers? This has nothing to do with asylum. So it's hard to work out what's going on here, but we do know that it's probably U.S. FBI or U.S. intelligence are involved in this. Clearly is a daily shooter event. Okay. These sort of coincidences don't happen. But to the average American and the flag waving MAGA cultist or people who watch Fox or Newsmax or One American News, this will be what we're saying here is going to be lost on them. What we're about to show you, which is probably going to blow your mind in a minute, it will be these people, it doesn't even register in their little brains. Okay. Now, here's the reveal. DC shooter suspect could not tolerate the violence of his CIA-backed unit in Afghanistan, says childhood friend. So the shooter, this guy, was a CIA asset in Afghanistan. And the U.S. purposely brought him over to the United States, and he has been activated. What part of this do you not understand, people? The mainstream, even the New York Times has laid the obvious clue out here. This guy is a CIA asset. This isn't just some asylum seeker or an immigrant, okay? And he has been activated. He's operational. And he did his job. So what we don't know was who was in his ear that led him to D.C., that helped organize this. We'll never know. If it was through the FBI, you wouldn't know. If it's through the CIA, fat chance as well. If it's Israeli intelligence working this guy, you will never find out. I personally think probably, again, you would be shocked. We would all be shocked to know the level of involvement the Israeli state and its various agents and people and operatives, the level they've penetrated some of these major high-profile events. It would probably shock all of us if the truth were to be known. And we may never find out. But some clues have been left along the way, which are very interesting. Okay. 21st Century Wire has the greatest archive probably on the internet for these types of events. And I'm not just saying that, it's true. Here's another great piece by Sean Helton. Orlando known wolf watched by the FBI, worked with DHS amid crisis actors, drills, and CIs. Omar Mateen, that's the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooter. And it just so turns out, also Afghani. And his father was a CIA asset. The father of Orlando shooter, a longtime CIA asset. They were priming him as a potential president candidate in Afghanistan, believe it or not. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? The alleged shooter's father played an absolute key role in setting up the entire, quote, hate crime narrative by inserting this quote into the mainstream media machine during the immediate aftermath of the sensationalized media event. Sadiq Mateen, father of Omar Mateen, said, "We were in downtown Miami, Bayside. People were playing music. And he saw two men kissing each other in front of his wife and kid, and he got very angry. They were kissing each other and touching each other, and he said, 'Look at that. In front of my son, they are doing that.' And there we were in the man's bathroom and the men kissing each other, etc." So his son, upset at gays' public display of affection in Miami, okay? And the dad inserts this into the media, which basically shored up the official story that this was some random hate crime, when in fact it was much more than that, as we all came to learn eventually. And it's why nobody wants to do any serious post-mortem on this event, because it is just one of these completely sensationalized, high-profile mass shootings featuring a CIA asset who also was doing documentaries for the Department of Homeland Security. The shooter. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. How and why this was done, You got various. We could go into it in the overdrive segment, but it's important that people understand the background of some of these stories. Okay, Pulse nightclub shooter, father, CIA asset. DC shooter, CIA asset. 2 high-profile shooting events with political outcomes attached to them. Coincidence? If you think that's a coincidence, I can't help you at this point. You're on your own, folks. Honestly, you're on your own. So that's what's happening in that end. Actually, look, one more detail on this. We're going to go to break. Okay. Here we go. U.S. halts all asylum claims decisions after National Guard shooting. So Trump's putting a pause on migrants from third world countries. Well, this has nothing to do with that. The shooting has nothing at all to do with that. And yet, this was one of the political outcomes of this event. So you see what we're trying to teach you here, to look beyond the headlines. Look further. Do not take any of these stories on face value. And to quote the great master of disaster himself, Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, a complete sociopath, a crazed former IDF soldier running the White House and running our government during the Obama administration. Never let a serious crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before, says Rahm Emanuel. That's one of the greatest political quotes of all time. And that's exactly what Trump did. Okay? And this shores up the immigration issue a little bit more, a very emotive issue used to manipulate the public, a major populist tool, if you will. So, folks, we're just pointing out the obvious here. This isn't conspiracy theorizing. This is political science, but advanced political science. Thankfully, our audience at the Sunday Wire is fluent in all of these topics. If you've been listening for 5 or 10 years, we have some people listening to this program for the last over 10 years. Okay. They are totally fluent. Our audience is fluent in the daily shooter discourse because we pioneered it, and our great writers, our great journalists, my great colleagues absolutely know their way around this topic. And it's not something that you want to be an expert on, trust me, because it shouldn't be happening. But it's happening. Anyway, look, we'll take a break right now, and we'll return with the Overdrive segment on the other side. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. You are watching and listening to the Sunday Wire, episode 571. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad. Brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man and upper man. Divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe your lying eyes, you know me. Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with a doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gamble your trust. Pushing us to turn to good. on atrocity, no accountability.